Now, in the wake of the death of Alex Madaga, a name that I'm sure you know, the man who died after spending 18 hours in an ambulance last week, many questions are being asked by Kenyans across the country about each Kenyan's entitlement to emergency medical treatment. Now, on our new segment this week, 5 things you need to know, we're tackling just that. So let's get into it. Tonight we're joined from our I&M studios by Tabitha Saonyo Griffith, from the acting deputy director from the Kenya Ethical and Legal Network here in Nairobi. Thank you very much for joining us, Tabitha. 5 things that we need to know about emergency medical treatment. Perhaps I'll start with the first one before we even go to number 1, is that it's in our Bill of Rights, Article 43(1). Every Kenyan has a right to emergency medical treatment. But first, let's get into the first one that we need to know about this. Number 1, emergency medical treatment is not a preserve of public hospitals. All facilities are bound to provide it. Tabitha, how little do we know about this as Kenyans?
Thank you, Alan. The truth and the reality of the matter, sadly, is that many Kenyans, especially the ones who need this information most, do not know that. They are not aware of their constitutional rights, and they're not aware of the fact that private facilities are bound to provide emergency medical treatment equal to public health facilities.
Well, Tabitha, we saw last week with Coptic Hospital apparently turning Alex Madaga away, and Coptic Hospital is not a public hospital. What can the family do? What can do? What recourse does Alex's family have in this case?
Well, the great thing is that the right to emergency medical treatment is enshrined in the Constitution, and that makes it a right that you can actually go to court and ask the court to give you remedies for. So Alex's family has several interventions. I believe that the public is aware of the fact that the Kenya Medical Practitioners and Dentists Board already held a preliminary inquiry yesterday, and they've now moved on and said that Kenyatta National Hospital and Coptic have a case to answer, and their cases are going to be within the next 21 days. So that's the first step for the family. The second step for the family is, of course, now to ask the courts, go to the courts if they find that they still want an interpretation of what Article 43(2) really means. And that means that for them they can go and seek punitive damages against the hospitals that are held liable.
All right, that I think brings us very nicely into number 2 of the 5 things that you need to know this evening, is that the health bill guarantees the right to emergency medical treatment, prescribing punishment for violation. But this is a health bill, not an act yet, hasn't been passed. So what substantive law can someone use to claim the right under the Constitution, Tabitha?
Well, as much as the bill, as you rightly put it, is still a bill, we then go back to the Constitution, which is the apex of the law, and where it is the source, the very source of the law. And if you look at it does not need any further interpretation. What the health bill does is merely come in and say that every person is entitled to emergency medical treatment. Where a private facility or public facility denies a person this emergency medical services, then they're liable in law and therefore prescribes a punishment for it. But that does not mean that simply because we don't have a bill that gives life to Article 43(2) that we cannot go to court. Article 43(2) in itself allows you to go to court and ask the court to declare that there was a violation of your right. So we still have a lot of laws in place.
Okay, let's go into number 3, the Constitution, health policy, the Kenya health policy and
to give life to all these aspects of health, including emergency medical treatment. So what we need actually is just to give life to Article 43 in itself and say, let's have a health bill that defines the standards, sets the punishments for those who violate the law, because the Constitution doesn't do that.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, let's move now to some figures here that that perhaps show how serious the situation is with respect to emergency medical treatment. Number 4, Kenyatta Hospital has 21 ICU beds, whereas the WHO recommends 63 beds. KNH is the hospital of choice for all ICU cases in Kenya. Serious situation just from the numbers, but what can Kenya do right now, especially with health being a devolved function in this country?
Well, there are several things that the government can do. We must remember that the obligation of the government is to promote, protect, and fulfill its obligations, as well as the obligations that it has under the ratified instruments that it has in the international scenario. Number 1, we need to ensure that at the county level, are we able to compel our counties to have at least a minimum of 3 ICU beds in each county? Number 2, do we have trauma centers in Kenya? No, we do not have any. And within the county setting, our priority, sadly, if you look at the statistics for the last few years post-devolution, has been to buy ambulances rather than to equip the hospitals that we have, such that we stop doing the referrals to Kenyatta.
Yeah.
The sad reality is that we're still doing referrals because our hospitals at the county level are not equipped in terms of the facilities they need and also in terms of the personnel they need. And that is why the referral keeps happening.
And I believe this was in a Jubilee manifesto that there'd be more referral hospitals and upgrading of referral hospitals of hospitals to referral status across the country. That hasn't happened yet. Fairly serious, which leads us to number 5, something that you mentioned. Kenya has no specialized trauma center. What does this make for the enforcement of the right to emergency medical treatment, both in private hospitals or in public hospitals, Tabitha?
Ideally, as I said, a trauma center would be able to respond better to issues, particularly of disasters. Alan, we must remind ourselves that disasters are inevitable. Be it through terrorism, which as a country, Kenya, we must acknowledge that we're facing, be it through road accidents, which are not preventable in most instances, or be it through any natural disaster that may happen. The sad reality is that as a country, we have not invested enough in emergency medical treatment as a component of health. Therefore, we do not have the required number of nurses who are supposed to have at least specialized information when it comes to emergency treatment. We do not have the right number of neurosurgeons who can be able to cater for emergency medical situations if they occur. A trauma center and a well-built trauma center would be able to at least have the facilities themselves in terms of the ICU and HDU facilities, as well as probably also have the personnel, the nurses, the doctors, who have a greater understanding other than the just general understanding that a doctor has.
All right, Tabitha Saonyo Griffiths, the acting deputy. Thank you very much for joining us this evening on 5 things you need to know about emergency medical treatment. Hopefully now Kenyans are more up to date with the kind of information that they need to be able to claim that very important right, and hopefully a situation that took place last week with the death of Alex Madaga does not replay itself in this country. Thank you very much for joining us, Tabitha.